Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the GSL-English Podcast. My name is Gideon, and this is a podcast for all learners of English to practice and improve in a relaxed and natural way. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you are doing well. I hope you have had a lovely week, and I hope you have had a superb year. And I say that because if I've got this right, if my dates are correct, and at the time of upload, if it's all gone to plan, this is the last episode of 2024. I'm a little bit doubtful because last year I got it completely wrong, I think. I either uploaded or I had podcasts ready to be the last episode of 2023, only to realise we had another week left. So I've checked, double-checked, and checked again that this is the last episode of 2024. So we're going to talk about the year in this episode. We're going to look at the Oxford University's Word of the Year. Okay, going to read a little bit about why they have chosen this very interesting and intriguing word to be the word of the year. And then we're going to just chat about some takeaways from the year. Some very trivial, they're not serious at all. Just some things I've learned about myself, about life over the last year, and then perhaps going to look at some takeaways that I'm going to try and apply in a business kind of level and just progressing. Some things I've learned this year that I want to put into practice over the next year, and perhaps they will help you too. I don't know, or maybe it's just me. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me again. If you are new here, if this is the first time you're checking out this podcast, give it a chance. Don't switch off just yet. As any returning viewer or listener will know, grab a cup of tea, grab a cup of coffee, get some beans on toast, whatever you need, just to sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode with me. As I said, my name is Gideon. I am an English teacher from London, and I put out these podcasts to help you improve all areas of your English, but with the focus on being able to communicate in an authentic, natural, and real way. So that's what we try to help you to do in this podcast. And along the way, we learn some things about life here in England and British culture. So you've got nothing to lose, really. Give it a subscribe. Give this podcast a follow. Give it a like. Leave a comment. You're in now. You are obliged to do so. But yeah, 2024 has been a good year. It's been a very busy year. But I have something to share with you, okay? I've got some news. Now, some of you might be happy about this news. For me, because it doesn't, actually, I don't know why you'd be happy about this news because it doesn't affect you at all. But I know some people, I think, will be slightly disappointed. Okay? The podcast is coming to an end. No, I'm only joking. That was a joke. It's not coming to an end. But the cabin is. Okay, so if you're watching on YouTube, you will know that all of my podcasts pretty much throughout the last year have been inside this cabin. If you're watching, if you're listening on Spotify, then check it out on YouTube just so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. So the podcast over the last year have been produced from this little cabin. And that's because we have been spending some time living with my parents just since we moved back to England, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on in the podcast. But we've just been working out what we're going to do, saving up some money, and we've been living with my parents. And this cabin has served many purposes throughout my life. So when I was younger, it was a music room. Me and my friends, we had a rock band. We used to practice in here. The drum kit used to be in that corner. We used to sometimes do little gigs in here. It's become a gaming room. It's been a gym. It's been, for the last year, my podcasting / living room with my wife. But that is coming to an end because we are moving. We've got a place to live. It's actually not too far from here, but it means that this podcast background will be changing. I know for 99% of you, you couldn't care less. and you're probably at the point where you've skipped forward in the video. But the reason I'm saying this is because I didn't just want to shock you with a podcast from another location permanently, because I know actually a lot of you do like the cabin. I often get comments saying, "Oh, I really like the cozy vibe of your cabin. It helps me to relax." Vibe is a word, by the way, that's just been thrown into usage now. It just means talking about the atmosphere, the kind of vibe, the atmosphere that you're soaking up. And many of you like the cozy vibe of the cabin. So I do apologise. It will be going, but I have some plans for the backgrounds in my new office, or basically another bedroom at the house that we're going to be living in, to make it look a little bit more professional. Hopefully I have a bit more of a permanent podcasting station. Yeah, so it will be changing very soon. I'm not sure when that will happen, but you'll see. But yeah, finally, we're moving out. So I just wanted to let you know that before we do move on. Now, let's talk about the Oxford University's Word of the Year. Okay, drum roll, please. Is the microphone picking that up? I'm not too sure. Can you hear that? I don't know. If it is, we're going to do it one more time. You will hear the drum roll from my desk. If not, there's just going to be about 3 seconds of silence. So, Oxford University's Word of the Year is, drum roll please, brain rot. Brain rot is the word of the year. Why on earth is brain rot named Oxford Word of the Year 2024? Okay, so brain rot is a noun, and we're going to read why this has been deemed the word of the year by Oxford University. Here we go. Following a public vote in which more than 37,000 people had their say, we are pleased to announce that the Oxford Word of the Year for 2024 is brain rot. Our language experts created a shortlist of 6 words to reflect the moods and conversations that have helped shape the past year. After 2 weeks of public voting and widespread conversation, our experts came together to consider the public's input, voting results, and our language data. Before declaring brain rot as the definitive word of the year for 2024. But why brain rot? Brain rot is defined as the supposed deterioration or lowering of a person's mental or intellectual state, especially viewed as the result of overconsumption of material, now particularly online content, considered to be trivial or unchallenging, lack of importance. Also something characterized as likely to lead to such deterioration. Our experts noticed that brain rot gained new prominence this year as a term used to capture concerns about the impact of consuming excessive amounts of low-quality online content, especially on social media. This podcast excluded. The term increased in usage frequency by 230% between 2023 and 2024. The first recorded use of brain rot was found in 1854 in Henry David Thoreau's book Walden, which reports his experiences of living a simple lifestyle in the natural world. As part of his conclusions, Thoreau criticizes society's tendency to devalue complex ideas or those that can be interpreted in multiple ways, in favor of simple ones, and sees this as indicative of a general decline in mental and intellectual effort. While England endeavours to cure the potato rot, will not any endeavour to cure the brain rot, which prevails so much more widely and fatally? That's a quote from Thoreau. The term has taken on new significance in the digital age, especially over the past 12 months, initially gaining traction on social media platforms, particularly on TikTok among Gen Z and Gen Alpha communities, brain rot is now seeing more widespread use, such as in mainstream journalism, amidst societal concerns about the negative impact of over-consuming online content. In 2024, brain rot is used to describe both the cause and effect of this, referring to low-quality, low-value content found on social media and the internet, as well as the subsequent negative impact that consuming this type of content is perceived to have on an individual or society. It has also been used more specifically and consistently in reference to online culture, often used in a humorous or self-deprecating manner by online communities. It is strongly associated with certain types of content, including creator Alexei Gerasimov's viral Skibidi Toilet video series, featuring humanoid toilets and user-generated, only in Ohio, memes, which reference bizarre incidents in the States. The content has given rise to emerging brain rot language, such as Skibidi, meaning something nonsensical, and Ohio, meaning something embarrassing or weird, which reflects a growing trend of words originating in viral online culture before spreading offline into the real world. Very sad, I think. Now, also gaining momentum is a broader, more serious conversation about the potential negative impact that excessively consuming this content might have on mental health, particularly in children and young people. Earlier this year, a mental health center in the US even published advice online about how to reorganize and avoid brain rot. Speaking about this year's selection process and the 2024 winner, Casper Grathwohl, president of Oxford Languages, said, "It's been insightful and deeply moving to see language lovers all over the world participate and help us select the Oxford Word of the Year 2024. Goes on to say, looking back at the Oxford Word of the Year over the past 2 decades, you can see society's growing preoccupation with how our virtual lives are evolving. The way internet culture is permeating so much of who we are and what we talk about. Last year's winning word, Riz, was an interesting example of how language is increasingly formed, shaped, and shared with online communities. Riz was talking about charisma, basically, particularly talking about when flirting or something like that. You know, if you got Riz, pretty awful word, I think. Brain rot speaks to one of the perceived dangers of virtual life and how we are using our free time. It feels like a rightful next chapter in the cultural conversation about humanity and technology. It's not surprising that so many voters embrace the term, endorsing it as our choice this year. I find it fascinating that the term brain rot has been adopted by Gen Z and Gen Alpha. Those communities largely responsible for the use and creation of the digital content the term refers to. These communities have amplified the expression through social media channels, the very place said to cause brain rot. It demonstrates a somewhat cheeky self-awareness in the younger generations about the harmful impact of social media that they've inherited. Very interesting. I appreciate that was a bit longer than I thought, that article, so I hope you're still with me. But brain rot is the word of the year, and this stems from the overconsumption, basically, of completely useless content on social media. And I was thinking about this. It's not, that we should never absorb or take in useless content. Some of it's entertaining, isn't it? We watch just some videos to entertain ourselves, but it's the over consumption of rubbish. That's the way I kind of view it. That is what is on people's minds. The fact that we are just consuming such quick, useless, inappropriate content all the time, it is rotting our brain. That is the concept. And when something rots, it degrades. So that is the term of the year, brain rot. And I think the idea behind this is to raise awareness. that is what's happening, particularly amongst younger generations. So there you go. That is the word of the year, brain rot. Quite interesting, I think. On a societal level, that is an interesting word to choose. I think was it pandemic? Was it pandemic or virus or... I can't remember when it was, when COVID hit. That was the word of the year. Last year was Riz, basically short for charisma. And this year is brain rot. So do let me know your thoughts on that. What do you think? Do you think that's an appropriate term? Do you feel that it's a bit negative to choose as the word of the year? But I think it's an interesting point he made at the end, that actually it's mostly been adopted by Gen Z, Gen Alpha, the ones that are very much responsible for the digital content that's put out today. But also, they're using that term even though they're the ones putting out that content. So it shows, that there is an awareness, perhaps, that what this content is doing to one's brain. But I guess I was thinking about it, that we all have our own individual responsibility to look after our brains, don't we? And that actually is one of my goals for next year, because I think we're all guilty of it. I know myself included. I spend too much time just scrolling on Instagram. But I will really, really want to use some of that time more wisely, reading things that will benefit me, my life, my family, business, whatever. Just trying to replace some of that time to not suffer from brain rot. There you go. Oxford Word of the Year. Now, my observations, my takeaways from the last year. The first one is, I love England in summer. This year we had a lovely summer here in England, and I believe, for me personally, there's no other country I want to be in other than England in summer. I absolutely loved it this year. And the reason I say that is because my wife and I, we've been in a fortunate situation where we've been able to live in a few different countries over the last year. If you are a long-term listener or follower on Instagram, you'll know, actually I wasn't podcasting then, but my wife and I met and lived in the Dominican Republic for 4 years. I wasn't podcasting then at all, but I did start an Instagram page in 2020, which kind of sparked the process of beginning a podcast. But yeah, living out in Dominican Republic then, and out there it's basically hot all the time. You have rainy season, not rainy season, but apart from that it's humid and hot, which is lovely, but there's no escape from it. There's no break. Year after that, so a year ago, we lived in Italy, which is where I started this podcast, living in Italy. Beautiful country, absolutely loved it. But this year, we had summer here in England for the first time in a long time, actually for the first time in our married life, and I absolutely loved it. I had such a nice time. Again, the vibe, the atmosphere was just brilliant. We were fortunate to have family visiting us from New Zealand. We had barbecues every night out in the garden. You're driving around with your windows down, music playing. And I just thought to myself, I really love England in the summer. So that's one thing I've taken away from this year, that for me, there's no better country, if we actually get a summer, to be in than England. Winter, I'm happy to go away. Happy to go away to a hot country and forget it. But England in summer is absolutely fantastic. If you've lived here, or if you spent some time here in summer, it's brilliant. We went to London quite a few times, just walking around Hyde Park and Oxford Street and all of this, just with the sun out, grabbing a beer or coffee, in the heat of the afternoon. It was just lovely. Yeah, so I've got really fond memories of summer here in England. So that's one of my takeaways from this year. England's great in summer. Absolutely love it, if we do get a summer, that is. Another takeaway I've got from this year is that one of my favourite places in England is the Cotswolds. So our wedding anniversary is in February, and this February we decided to go away for a couple of nights to a beautiful manor house in the Cotswolds. And often, you get those deals sometimes with secret escapes or something like that, where you have a night or at the hotel, you get dinner and breakfast included. So that's what we did. And I think I'd been to the Cotswolds in the southwest of England. I'd been there as a kid, but I didn't really remember it too much. And honestly, it's one of my favourite places in England. It's kind of, even for me, it's that quintessential English life. There's a beautiful town called Chipping Norton. And it's just, well, even from an Englishman, what you imagine England to be, if that makes any sense. I think if you were visiting England, you went to the Cotswolds, you would get that picturesque view that you had in mind of countryside in England. There's rolling hills for miles, farmland, pubs, stone houses. Oh, I just love it so much. So I realised this year that actually that's one of my favourite places in England. We've actually been twice this year. It was my mother and father's anniversary in October. So we went there a couple of months ago. We went to Jeremy Clarkson's farm, if you know him, the presenter of Top Gear. We went to his farm, to his restaurant. I don't know, there's just something about it that I absolutely love. So if you are planning on visiting England, the United Kingdom, or doing a little tour, and you want to go to London but have a little break, I highly recommend hiring a car and driving to the Cotswolds. It's about 2.5 hours from London. It's not too bad, 2.5, 3 hours. There's a beautiful hotel I recommend called the Wood Norton. Okay, wood as in the material, and Norton, Norton. I'm not sponsored in any way, by the way. I just loved it. Great hotel, beautiful location, good food, good service, and they had a couple of cats. So if you're a cat fan, great place to be. These cats were really friendly. I remember just having a pint of Guinness and this cat just jumping on my lap. I was very, very happy because, as you know, I'm a cat guy. Love cats. So yeah, that is one of my takeaways over the last year, that Cotswolds is just an absolutely fantastic place to go. Check it out. Have a look on Google. Absolutely brilliant. In the southwest of England. Beautiful. It's quite, getting closer to Wales. Brilliant. This past year, another thing I've discovered are slippers. What do I mean by slippers? Slippers are the shoes that you kind of wear around the house. They just slip on your feet. Now, it's not that I realise how weird that sounded, but I'm going to embrace it. This is my year of slippers. Now, I've not been anti-slippers, just never really thought about wearing them. But for my anniversary this year, my mum got me this pair of slippers, kind of fur-lined, tanned material. And at first, it was kind of one of those presents, when you get it and you think, great, thank you so much. I'm really happy for these inside shoes. Never really worn them before. Just being an ungrateful son, really, at 34 years old. But I thought I'd give them a try. First week, I thought, oh, yeah, this is all right. But now, my goodness, I can't walk round the house without slippers on. Actually, I'm going to show you my slippers now. I don't know if this is weird. If you're watching on YouTube, you can now see my slipper. This is it. This is what my mum bought me. Fur-lined, tanned, basic slipper. I could just see myself here because I have just a little image just to make sure the recording's happening. I had one of those moments where I thought, what are you doing, Gideon? I'm staring at myself, showing people, subscribers to my podcast, a slipper. It's a moment in life I thought I would never get to and never imagined happening, but here we are. It is happening. I hope you're enjoying it as much as me. This is the high quality content you get with the GSL-English Podcast. You get to stare at my slipper. But that's what we mean. Slips on the foot. Love a good slipper. But this year now, I can't honestly live without them. I can't walk around the house or do anything unless I have my slippers on. They're like a comfort blanket for me. So yeah, this year I discovered I absolutely love slippers. What a great thing to come away from the year with. I absolutely love them. As I say, can't walk around the house. Like every morning I wake up and I'll make a coffee for myself and my wife. First thing I do is stumble around trying to find my slippers. The thought of going downstairs to make a coffee without my slippers on is almost barbaric to me now. It's never going to happen. I can't do anything in the morning until my slippers are on. And I plan to stay that way. Maybe it's just because I'm getting older, but the slippers aren't going anywhere. And that leads me to my next point. I forgot about these. I bought them in. I did. Right. I forgot about a biscuit that I absolutely love here in England, which is a jammy Dodger. Okay. Now, you can see it's open. I did buy these just to show you in the podcast. But this afternoon, I had a coffee and I couldn't resist but open the jammy Dodgers. So I think there's 2 left inside. Yeah. But this year I've realised how much I love jammy Dodgers. I've eaten far too many of these over the last year. A jammy Dodger is like, it's 2 layers of biscuit with jam, this one being raspberry, in the middle. Okay? They're just fantastic. I absolutely love them. I think it would be terrible to see, like if someone just put a pile of the amount of jammy Dodgers I've eaten over the last year in the corner of the room. I think I'd be disgusted by it. But yeah, I forgot about these biscuits and how much I love them. So that's another thing I'm going to take away from this year. So we've got slippers, game changer. Jammy Dodgers are to never be forgotten again. Absolutely love them. As I said at the beginning of this podcast, some of my takeaways are very trivial. But there you go. There you go. Jammy Dodgers are the way forward. Okay, now to the more serious stuff. What have I learnt regarding the podcast? 2 things. Okay, so these are the 2 things that I've taken from this year. I actually wrote them down and I want to put them into practice next year. The first is be yourself. Go with your own style. And that's one thing I really try and do on the podcast, and I'm trying to put it across more and more. Because I've realised that so many times I would look on YouTube for inspiration, for content ideas, and then I would look at somebody else that perhaps is a lot more successful and see what they're doing that I'm not doing and try and imitate their style. Every time I do it, I never put those episodes out. Afterwards, I feel a bit wrong. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like the podcast. So one thing I'm going to put into practice over the next year is just moving forward with my own style of podcasting, my own style of, what I like to put out there. It's not perfect by any means, but hopefully it helps and hopefully you're enjoying it. Because I think it's so easy to look at everyone else and try and imitate what they're doing, but have your own style and develop it. Let that style evolve. And I was thinking we can apply this to so many different things in life, because it's very rare that something is successful because it is in imitation of someone else. I don't know what you think about that, whether you agree with me, but it's very rare that something is successful because it is in imitation of someone else. And perhaps there's something you love to do. Perhaps there's something maybe you put out content, or maybe you're an artist or a musician. Isn't it true that when you just do something that is your own style, that is unique to you, what you like, you're so much more proud of it. And in turn, it's much more likely to be recognized, to be successful. And that's what I'm really going to put into practice with this podcast, because I know it's not for everyone. There are some superb podcasts out there, but that's okay. You're just in addition to what else is already out there. And that leads me on to my next takeaway from this year, and that is to not compare myself when it comes to the podcast to anyone else. I've had a habit of doing that over the last year because, we are growing, but it's slow. Some weeks are good, the views are brilliant. Other weeks they're not as good. And then on the weeks that are good, I wouldn't compare myself with anyone. I'd be really proud of myself and say, yes, I'm onto something. This is fantastic. But on the weeks where it's not so good, do you know what the first thing I do is? I look at the other English learning channels, look at the other English learning podcasts. I look at their views and think, oh man, they're doing so much better than me. And it's such a negative comparison to make. So I'm not going to do that at all next year. I've decided I'm not actually really going to look at anyone else's podcasts, what anyone else is doing, just do my own thing, be proud of it, and just keep on going. And the point of that is we can apply that to our English or whatever we're doing. I don't know, maybe we're starting a new business, maybe we're trying to be successful in other areas, but we'll focus on the English language. Comparing yourself to others really never helps. It is always a hindrance. Now, what I don't mean by that is not learning from someone else, because that's something very different. But it's so easy to compare our accent, compare our pronunciation, compare our use of vocabulary to someone else. And it's very rare that we come away from that with something positive. It doesn't help at all. So kind of that's what I'm going to try and do with the podcast and in other areas of my life, stop comparing myself to others. But also, I challenge you, if you do have the habit of comparing yourself to others, comparing your English to something else you hear, don't do it. Really try not to compare yourself to anyone. You've got your own relationship, your own connection with English, your own pronunciation, your own accent. Roll with that. Be yourself. Go with your own style. Develop that in a way that is correct. Within your own style, develop your pronunciation, develop your accent, but without comparing yourself to someone else. It never ends well, and it generally always makes us feel a little bit worse. And that's my biggest takeaway from the year is, be proud of what we're doing, be proud of where we are now, keep on developing ourselves. Don't get stale. Don't think, oh, that's it, I'm at a point I'm happy with. We have to keep on progressing, keep on developing, but within the boundaries of our own style and without comparing ourselves to others. It's kind of my little speech, what I'm going to take away from this year. But there you go. So thank you so much for your support over the last year. I really, honestly, I appreciate it. We're growing. I think we're nearly at 32. I think we're just over 32,000 subscribers. We're not the biggest podcast out there, but I do feel like the community. I naturally did it there. Did you notice that? I immediately compared myself to others. There's 32,000 of us, and we should be proud of that. That is amazing. That is something to be proud of. That is an achievement for all of us. And, this podcast got its own style. It's not for everyone. That's okay. But I do plan over the next year just to keep putting content out. As I say, I think it's going to go to 2 episodes a week starting from January that can help you even more so learn and use the English language in a real and authentic way to create connections and communication with people. That is the goal. That is the idea of this podcast. So if you have any suggestions, send them through in the comments. Let me know. And, I want to put out content that will help you. So if you've got any suggestions, please do let me know. But once again, thank you. I'm so excited to see where this podcast goes over the next year. And who knows? You never know what's going to happen. You can only plan so much, and then you just ride the wave of whatever you're doing. But have a great weekend coming out on Sunday, and I will see you all in 2024. 2025. Oh, every year I struggle with that. I'm going to say 2024 for the next 6 months, guarantee you. But yeah, I will see you all in 2025. Have a good one, guys.